ליהודים ליהודים אוי סוירו אוי לה ושמחה וששון ויקור ליהודים ליהודים אוי סוירו רב שמחה וששון ויקור כן 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 תהיה לנו אוי רב שמחה וששון ויקור איי 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 כן 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 תהיה לנו אוי רב שמחה וששון ויקור איי 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 כן כן תהיה לנו אוי רב שמחה וששון ויקור איי 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 כן כן תהיה לנו אוי רב שמחה וששון ויקור
Hello everyone. We've been dedicating a lot of time to a Purim on Friday, but it's no secret that this year also has another unique aspect to it when we talk about Purim, and that is a Purim Meshulash in Yerushalyim, namely in places that have an enwalled city from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. They have a 3-day Purim, 2 mitzvot a day. On Friday, they do a Kriyat HaMegillah like everyone else, Thursday night, Friday, as well as on Friday morning after Megillah reading, they do Matanot LaEvyonim, they give those gifts to the poor. On Shabbos, they do A, Say Al Anisim and all the davening, and B, they read Vayavo Amalek, the Torah reading for Purim as Maftir, and then they're going to repeat the Haftorah from last week, reading the same Haftorah 2 weeks in a row. Namely, they'll have a different Haftorah than the rest of the Jewish world. And finally, on Sunday, they're going to do 2 extra mitzvot, Mishloach Manot and the Seudah. That's Purim Meshulash, that's the 3-day Purim, 2 mitzvot a day. What I want to deal with is a very simple question. If you're visiting Yerushalayim on Shabbos, are you obligated in 2 days of Purim? Namely, are you obligated on Shabbos to say Al Anisim, to hear the Torah reading, and then on Sunday to have another Seudah and give Mishloach Manot, despite the fact that you already celebrated Purim on Friday, wherever you might have been? So in order to deal with this question, we have to go to the sources of a regular Purim. In Masechet Megillah, Daf Yutet Amud Aleph, it talks about a ben ir shehalach lekrach, uben krach shehalach leir, namely a resident of, let's say, Tel Aviv or Efrat that went to Yerushalayim, or vice versa. And there's a machloket Rashi and the Rosh how to explain it. The Rosh basically says that the Sha'at HaChiyuv is your dalit. Namely, if you wake up after Alot HaShacha, after dawn, on the 14th of Adar, that will determine that year if you are a ben ir or a ben krach. So if you wake up, say, on the 14th of Adar, say Friday, in Efrat, then you're obligated in the mitzvot of Purim on that day, namely your dalit, like the rest of the Jewish world. But if you wake up in Yerushalayim, you will be obligated in the 3-day Purim. Rashi, on the other hand, and that's the way we paskin it, he basically says there is no such thing. At the bottom line is, where you wake up is where you celebrate Purim. And therefore, if you wake up on Friday morning in Efrat, you will celebrate Purim on your dalit on Friday. However, if you wake up on Shabbos morning in Yerushalayim, you're obligated in Purim in Yerushalayim. Namely, you're obligated again in Purim, and that's the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins, and that's the way the Mishnah Brura paskins. So that's on a regular year. Regarding this particular year, there is a machloket haposkim. The only one that really paskins like the Rosh is Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He basically says that this year, if you wake up on Friday morning, that will determine the Purim for you. So if you wake up in Efrat, that's where you celebrate Purim. If you wake up in Yerushalayim, that's where you celebrate Purim. Thus, if you visit Yerushalayim for Shabbos, you are not, according to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, you are not obligated in the mitzvot of Purim, despite the fact that you're visiting Yerushalayim and you woke up on the 15th in Yerushalayim. However, the majority of poskim disagree, as they do every year. Everyone paskins like Rashi, and indeed this year is no exception. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, Rav Yitzchak Yosef and Yalkut Yosef, Rav Elyashiv, Rav Kanievsky all say it's like a regular year. So if you wake up in Yerushalayim on Tetvav, you're going to Yerushalayim for Shabbos, you will be obligated in saying Al Anisim again, and hearing that Torah reading, and on Sunday, Mishloach Manot, and of course the Seudah. There is one exception, and that is if you already celebrated your indeed on Friday in Efrat. in that situation, there are many, many poskim that come along and say that indeed we have to, this year, take the famous opinion of Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank's point of view is the only time you have to celebrate a 2-day Purim is if you move to Yerushalyim on the night of the 14th, and of course you wake up on the 15th after dawn in your new home. Ha'oker dirato, and only in that situation you have a 2-day Purim. But if you're visiting Yerushalayim, after you have celebrated Purim and outside Yerushalayim, you went to Yerushalayim and you fell asleep there and you woke up the next morning there, then you're not a resident of Yerushalayim. You happen to be there. And therefore, he says, you no such thing as a 2-day Purim. It makes no sense. It's not part of our religion. We have a 2-day Yontif in Chutz La'aretz. No such thing as a 2-day Purim in Israel. That's his general point of view. And obviously, this year would be no different. Namely, if you celebrated Purim on Friday and you went to Yerushalayim on Shabbos for a visit, you wouldn't celebrate Purim again. You wouldn't add Al Anisim in your davening. And on Sunday, you wouldn't be obligated in Mishloach Manot and the Seudah. Most don't agree with him. Every year, the Chazon Ish didn't agree. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach didn't agree. The Shari Yitzchak didn't agree. Rav Elyashiv didn't agree. But this particular year, because of the unique year we're in, indeed, it's very, very interesting that, indeed, Rav Elyashiv and Rav Kanievsky and the Yalkut Yosef say, you don't have a 2-day Purim. So even if you visit Yerushalayim for Shabbos, you still are not obligated in the mitzvot if you already celebrated Purim on Friday. However, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu and the Shari Yitzchak disagree and say it's like every year. If you ask my very, very humble opinion against these Gedolim, I will say that I don't see a difference. If every year we paskin that if you wake up in Yerushalayim on the 15th, you're obligated in Purim again, then this year is no exception. And it's a bit easier because at least 2 of the mitzvot you already did on Friday. So therefore, indeed, add Al Anisim on Shabbos, listen to that Torah reading anyway in Yerushalayim. You'll have no choice. That's the Torah reading they'll read. That's the Haftorah and the Maftir they'll read. And on Sunday, you don't have to go crazy. Give 1 Mishloach Manot, eat a meal with bread and meat, get a little tipsy, not so much, and you will fulfill the mitzvot of Purim life.
Ay, 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 que,